And welcome to the Hall Prison Universe. I am King HP, also known as Fathor, and we're gonna with the spoiler warning out now. Okay, this is Wandavision Ep.5. If you have yet to see it or you are going to binge watch, this may disturb your viewing experience. Starts off not in your typical fashion. This time we get a little bit of show first. So what happens in the show? We get an exhausted Wanda and a pretty good looking Vision, and they got the two babies and they're crying. It's full speed ahead.
Mommy, don't you want to sleep? Mommy wants to sleep. If you go to sleep, I promise you will be my favorite twin.
Come on now, darling. You know, we love them both equally.
Well, don't tell him that.
Really what's going on here is I think they're trying to paint a couple things. One, Wanda looks exhausted, okay? And I would like to speculate that it's from her keeping up with, they're going to later refer into the episode as the Hex, right? The Hex is this dome, this magic area, which is essentially Westview, that's contained inside of Wanda's power. So her maintaining this, it appears it has her very exhausted looking, very tired. She looks like a mom that's brand new with the babies crying. And Vision, you know, he looks very refreshed. He goes and gets the pacifiers. He puts them in where his ears should be. He's making jokes. And Wanda, you know, she doesn't know what to do. So she tries something. She tries to use her magic. And she even makes a note when the babies are continuing to cry, why won't you guys do what I want? So that's just a little thing for the back of the mind right there, right? So as they're going through this and Wanda says it, I think we could use a little help. Take a guess on who pops up. You got it. Agnes, right? So Agnes pops up and she's on her way to dance class. I wish you heard the babies crying, and that's all good. Okay. I think Agnes is here to prove a point because this is also where Vision starts to notice things. Okay. She's excited. She sees the baby. She wants to hold the babies. Vision intervenes, right? And when Vision intervenes, he's like, nah, when was the last time you washed your hands? And this scene right here is very, very key. Okay, because what happens is...
You know what? You just maybe we better not.
Do you want me to take that again?
I'm sorry?
You want me to hold the babies? Should we just take it from the top?
Now, why would Wanda be thrown off? Let's kind of pinpoint this a little bit. We see in episode 2, Wanda rewinds time. We see in episode 3, Wanda does the same thing again, right? And in both those episodes, she did it with Vision present. So when this is said, Vision is present, right? So when this happens, Vision isn't like, hey, she's rewinding time. He's kind of like, what? It's just really awkward, right? And Wanda plays it off to a degree where she just moves past it. Hey, Vision, I think we should let Agnes hold the babies, right? So the babies stay in the cribs, right? Vision pulls Wanda to the side. They have a small conversation. But Vision is asking, did you see that? Wanda, what aren't you telling me? At the same time, what's Agnes doing? She's having a good old time with them babies, isn't she? She's shaking them up, yeah. And then she sprays them with something. Right? I want that to be, it could have been just nothing, right? She said it was lavender. But she said, Ralph sprays this on me every night to keep me calm. Ain't no taming this tiger. A couple little things here. Tiger seems to be a reference for Agnes. Or is it? Is it her referencing something? Or is it, I don't know how to say this, but there's a tiger that's in Wanda's kitchen. Okay? And you see it throughout the episode every time they're in the kitchen, whether Agnes is there or not. So it's almost like saying, without saying, is Agnes watching them? Does Agnes see things that Wanda's just not, picking up on? The second thing about that is she says Ralph sprays that on her to calm her down. The babies actually do stop crying. And it's so subtle because by the time Vision learns of this because he's having this conversation with Wanda where his attention is gone, they go to look at the babies and the babies are gone. Now at this moment, Agnes is looking for something to drink. She says for the babies, but keep in mind Agnes drunk it. She was looking for dark liquor. And
Twins.
Mommy? Daddy?
Sprouted up to 5, right? And Agnes says something that is, again, flashing back to the Wanda thing where I said keeping the back of the head, right? She says, children, can't control them no matter how much you try, right? So Wanda had just tried to control the children with the magic. Agnes was not there for that, right? Agnes would have no idea that just happened. But Agnes says that now. Could it be a coincidental line? Agnes is on the watch list, right? Go back a couple episodes of my reviews. We put Agnes on a watch list. So keep all that stuff that she says in mind, okay? Before we roll forward, I do want to make a small point that Vision foreshadows a little things with mutants. When the children were crying, he's got Billy, and he says he was reading Charles Darwin's Descent of Man. So don't think it's a super big deal, although it does foreshadow. It essentially, the book itself is about evolution, sexual evolution, philosophical evolution, and we know mutants are the next step in evolution. So a little bit of foreshadowing there. But after this, the maturing of Tommy and Billy, we go and we see the SWORD team, and it's a Monica Rambeau Q&A, right? They're saying what was the first thing you remember? And she says pain. Now that you're gonna have to understand that that's a major thing, right? Because you said it first, and that was the first thing. But it's gonna come up later in the episode. Okay, so it's a constant throughout the residents and people inside the hex. Pain. Okay. Some of the other things she says is that she hears Wanda's voice inside her head, which is key because Wanda's voice inside her head, not Agnes's voice, not anyone else's voice. But then the lady comes over. They did vitals and CAT scans, and the CAT scan reveals nothing. It's just a bright silhouette, right, of Monica. Now, we could use comic reference. Well, Monica has power. Okay, this could be an origin of that, or it could be them not wanting to go there, but they want to show you that the hex does do something to those who are in it, or those who come out of it if they're, pushed out of it in some way. I only bring that up because on that watch list, right, we had to add the beekeeper because the beekeeper went into the hex, never came out, right? And we realized that on the episode because Director Haywood says, we now have firsthand intel from Monica from inside the hex. So where's that beekeeper? If something has happened to Monica, has something happened to all the residents or just those who went in or came out? We don't know if the beekeeper came out, but Monica and the beekeeper went in. Only Monica we can confirm has come out. All the other residents, they didn't go into the hex. They were already in the hex, right? So we'll see how Marvel frames who can get powers and abilities, or if you just have some sort of chemical imbalance or DNA changes or something about you is different, right? So I bring that up to say these things. Monica also talked about the feeling of drowning, right? Hopelessness, right? That's how the people feel in the hex, okay? So Director Haywood, another watch list guy. We have to watch this guy because the things he's about to tell at this brief, right? So he's about to brief the team, right? They got the first person intel. They give it to Agent Wu. Agent Wu does a breakdown. Does a breakdown of Wanda, right? And it's like, okay, her and Pietro were born in 1989. They're twins, born in Sokovia. Boom. Newsflash. Parents are Irina and Oleg Maximoff. Okay. Magneto, for all of us comic fans who are waiting for this, Magneto has never gone by that name. Not to say that he won't. Remember, Magneto's name has always been Eric Lencher. So as far as her being a child of Magneto, as far as in the MCU, that is not a confirmation. No matter what we see, spoiler for later, right? But that is not a confirmed thing. What we do know is she was the twin of Pietro. You heard that accent come back later in the episode. Okay. As Agent Wu was giving his rundown, though, Director Haywood seems like he is not a fan of the way he's doing it. And so he points out a couple things as Agent Wu was going through his notes. And he's like, stop right there, Agent Wu. Does she have any nicknames or aliases? Any funny nicknames or anything that she's gone by? Agent Wu denies it because at this moment she does not, right? But I think this is another clue about the Scarlet Witch, and this is where you see you'll start to pay attention, really, really pay attention to how much red is in these episodes since they've come in color. This episode in particular, where they bring up the nicknames, how she's dressed, what happens when Wanda touches the hex or does something to the hex or uses her powers, what color, right? It's a constant theme here. So they're going to paint that picture, I think, here in a few, especially when you call it the hex, right? What's known for hexes is in magic, is in witches. So it's going to kind of stick. And I think what they'll do is they'll try to frame that as the alternate, because she was a good guy. She was Wanda, right? And then you can almost be like, but in her grieving, she's the Scarlet Witch, right? It's almost like they can frame that together. It does talk about how they were radicalized by Hydra, and then Director Hayward goes kind of back and forth, asking, wasn't she a bad guy? Didn't she attack the Avengers? Agent Wu kind of sticks. Well, yeah, but then she later earned their trust, and and then Director Hayward is not having it because he points out Lagos. And you're coming with me.
Sam, we need fire and rescue on the south side of the building. We gotta get up there.
And then they bring up Germany, which was the Civil War, which was basically the breaking of the Sokovia Accords, right? So Director Hayward is really sticking it to the picture painting of Wanda and what they feel like she is. So when Monica comes up forward, she's like, wait a second, I don't feel that she is a threat. I don't feel like what she's doing is being a terrorist. And then Director Hayward kind of goes at her a little bit. Monica still defends that, meaning she doesn't have a political affiliation to really be a terrorist. She's not operating on organizational level where there's a hierarchy and someone's, well, terroristically, right? There's a goal here to be achieved. And also she's kind of defending her when she says that when people could be hurt and the hex is, could be bad. She says how it's Wanda quarantined herself with that, right? So she didn't let it get super out of hand, which we have taken over a city. So it's kind of out of hand. Director Hayward brings up a blockbuster, a bombshell, right? We're going to drop the bomb on that.
I received authorization to share this highly sensitive material from Sword headquarters. Until very recently, it was the top secret location of the Vision's corpse.
When was this?
9 days ago, Maximoff stormed our facility, stole the Vision's body.
The Vision's body, right? We see it severed into several parts. The head is over here, the chest is here, arms are separated, and legs are. So I have to rewind time a little bit. Okay, let's go back to episode 4. Okay, what we want to do is we want to ask the question of what did Director Hayward tell Monica about Sword? Okay, they were still talking about the space missions. Director Hayward tells Monica, since you left, I lost half the crew in the blip. The other half, basically they lost their marbles essentially, right? And we moved away from those things. Now, what happened at the blip? That's the Thanos snap. That's my man right here. When he did his first snap, Wanda is dusted, leaving Vision's body. Okay? Vision's body's in Wakanda. T'Challa is dusted. Don't know what type of relationship occurs with Wakanda in the world during this 5 years.
Oh my God!
But when Wanda comes back, she's going to fight Thanos. Now, even though Wanda is just finding out everything that's happened, 5 years have elapsed. I don't know how long Sword has had the body of Vision, okay? But they were operating or seemingly doing something with Vision's body, right? Research, whatever. What director Haywood told Monica is that SWORD is now looking at nanotech, robotics, AI, sentient weapons, everything Vision essentially is, right? Because he was a part of Stark, so it's assumed that with the nanotech, but he is a vibranium synthezoid, as Darcy is later going to say here in a minute. So what was the goal of SWORD with that body? We don't know, but Monica pointed out to director Haywood that it was also observation and response. But my key is, this is why we have to watch acting director Haywood. It's almost as if he switched. They move from the man missions. We don't really go up there anymore. We're about weapons, robotics. Wu represents the fans. And I mean this because when that briefing's over and they're about to leave out and Agent Wu's talking to Darcy, he asked the questions that all of us ask. How was she able to bring Vision back without the Mind Stone? Right? It's just we love Agent Wu for that. So a lot of the questions we have, it's like, Agent Wu, can you ask this? He says, yep. And he goes right into the show and does it. So Agent Wu, keep an eye on Agent Wu just for your questioning, because if Marvel's asking those questions, remember the dry erase board, right? Who was behind this? The hexagonal shapes. Is Vision alive? They had all those questions that we had, and Agent Wu was writing them. So Marvel is set to answer those questions. How and when is going to be key. Next, we go into the Wanda's house, the Maximoff house, and it's her and the kids, and the two boys are talking. Remember, they're 5 now. And they got something going on in the scene, and Wanda comes in, and she's all, Mom, what are you boys hiding? And something barks, so she move, right? And it's a dog. Cute little dog. Wanda doesn't want to keep the dog. And then she starts touching the dog, and then next thing you know, they're keeping the dog, right? So Vision comes at the same time, and he's like, what's going on? What you hiding over there? And Wanda's like, why are you all dressed up, right? Because mind you this time is moving at a pace that I don't think Wanda's keeping up with. And I think with her sitcoms, what day it is kind of like, because it's not your normal 24-hour rotation, right? So the boys want to keep the dog, and Agnes comes over with, guess what? Because Wanda asks, Vision, why are you all dressed up, right? This is the thing about the time. And as Vision explains, it's basically because he's expecting someone to just pop up. And guess what? Agnes pops up. Sure as you're born. With a doghouse. Oh, I just saw it through my window that you guys... With a doghouse. And Vision calls it out. Vision's like, it just so happens she shows up exactly at the right moment with the exact thing we need. That was said purposely, right? He's trying to get to Wanda so she understands this. I just don't think that Wanda really... This is, Vision doesn't know what's going on, right? So I think with Wanda, she kind of understands, I think, at this point, because from the conversation earlier with Agnes, she's kind of like playing stuff off. Almost like she doesn't, like, she's believing her own lies, essentially, or her own cover-up or masking or masquerading, right? So Agnes comes with a doghouse, and Vision is like, look, you guys aren't ready for a dog. I mean, you're not old enough. You're not responsible enough. And Wanda's like, yeah, I mean, what would be a good age? And Vision's like, I don't know, 10. Them boys looked right at each other and just grew up into 10, right? And with that being said, guess who's present again? Agnes. Guess who makes a comment again? Agnes. This time she's like, I hope the dog doesn't grow as fast as they do. Or so, let's hope the dog doesn't grow as fast. Like, I'm always going to go back to, what does she spray on them? Because every time Agnes is pregnant, take it from the top, Tippy. Every time Agnes is around, there is a growth spurt, right? And the babies, they calm down seemingly, because they were like, I don't know if they were going to cry, but they were upset. They were seemingly emotionally upset because they weren't going to be able to keep that dog, and they figured out a plan was to grow up, right? Grow up a little bit more. So with them being now 10, they got the dogs, right? And the funny thing about that dog is when they were trying to name the dog goes straight to the outlet, right? The electrical outlet, and like licks it, causes this sparks, right? And they named the dog Sparky, but I think that's kind of like Herb, right? Because Herb was trying to cut through that brick wall, looking for essentially a way out. Like, why would you be? Thanks, buddy. Right? I think that dog was on something, looking for, as far as onto something, looking for a way out, right? However, by whatever means. Okay, so then after this, right, they go back to the Sword headquarters, and Monica is talking with Agent Wu and Darcy, and we get a really good, cool part here where she's trying to figure out how to enter back into the hex, right? Well, she calls it the hex, which is labeled by Darcy. Darcy calls it the hex. She says because of all the shapes, remember they're swords, so they're seeing the outside, they're seeing the perimeter, the parameters of this event, the anomaly, the Maximoff anomaly, and they call it the hex. And it catches because here in a minute after this, Monica refers back to it as the hex. So, and Darcy takes great pride in that, right? She's like, oh, you called it the hex. So what they notice is they need more assistance because there's like 3 parts that they'll need to get back into the hex, of designing this machine that she has to get back into the hex. How many aerospace engineers we know in Marvel, right? Now, you might actually be able to start naming some. Now, remember, Marvel may shift things from what you knew to paint a new picture and give you what you will now know, right? And we saw this with Tony Stark and Ultron, right? In the comics, Ultron was created by Hank Pym, right? But in the MCU, it was created by Tony Stark because there was no Ant-Man yet, and Ant-Man was Hank Pym, not Scott Lang. And so Marvel will just give him a chance to work, right? It may be Reed Richards. It may be his wife. It may be someone we're not really thinking of, right? But she does say, I know an aerospace engineer that would be down for this. So with that, they move on a little bit, and then we get a little bit of, here comes our favorite agent, Agent Wu, and he's got some fandom because here goes Monica talking about Thanos and how Wanda almost took him out. And if it wasn't for Thanos calling in that blitz, she probably would have killed him. I want you guys to keep in mind, this is 5 years later. There are probably files now, being that the whole Avenger Tower was just taken out, all right, and people magically reappeared on that same day. So I think there's large files. So it's not like, well, no one was around. I mean, you had all those people from Wakanda come. You had all those people from New York that were students of the mystical arts and things like that. So I think there's a file probably per se that's out and about, right, of general knowledge. And what happens though is Agent Wu was like, well, Captain Marvel was pretty close as far as taking Thanos out. And Monica is like, we're not talking about her. We're talking about one. And Darcy and Agent Wu are like, whoa, Marvel wants you to see that. They want you to know there's a history. What is it? That is where it gets a little tricky because when you think about their history, if Captain Marvel left in the 90s, okay? Infinity War happens in the 2018. She's nowhere in sight. She gets the page, right? From Nick Fury. So is it possible she was gone during her mom's cancers? I mean, maybe more than likely she was. Did they have contact like Nick Fury had some sort of contact? Is she responsible for some of the cancer due to some of the missions that were happening in space? We don't know. But we do know there is a history. Monica is not too fond of Captain Marvel. But when we saw her in the movie Captain Marvel as a kid, man, she looked up to her. So let's look for some more storytelling from Marvel. They find out something about the hex. Monica went in. They go back to her uniform and they see it's still in that 70s gear. Like it didn't go back to the. Remember, she was in a sword outfit with the Kevlar vest and everything. And when she comes out of the hex, she's still in the same outfit with the fish pants that the flamingo was about to, or the stork was gonna bite, right? So they run tests on it. Agent, she has to see Agent Wu's gun. Boom, she fires 3 shots, pow, 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 at the pants. And what she finds out is the Kevlar vest has been transformed into the pants. So they figure out Wanda is rewriting reality. So this is an amazing notch of power that we're now seeing, higher than all the other notches that Wanda has been at. That is mind-blowing as far as the amount of power she is wielding right now. And people are going to probably say that she's too OP. Let me tell you something. Marvel has scaled Marvel very well. Unlike, right? They have, because I love them too. So we got some content coming for them. But they have scaled them very well. And what I mean is, whenever you saw the Hulk saying he's the strongest Avenger, they didn't have him blatantly more stronger than Thor. They always kind of had this back and forth. And when Thor discovered how to master his abilities, right, he seemingly was going to beat the Hulk. But then someone's going to have to ask, well, would that make the Hulk more angry? And like, it's always a debate. What they're doing is they're showing you Wanda's growth in her powers. Now, who are they not showing you? And what I mean by that is to say this, right? We don't know if Wanda's power is being amplified by someone, right? And the reason why I say that is because we still don't know who Ralph is. I can't even put Ralph on the watch list technically because we haven't seen him to watch. Don't know if he's even real or not, but I think he's very real. And I think he's the one who's ultimately pulling the strings, okay? So we're going to move forward. We go see Vision at his job. And when Vision's at his job, he's talking to Norm, and an email goes through, okay? This email is from Sword. And this is very important because it gets kind of creepy. The whole office reads the exact same email in unison out loud, okay? And and Vision is taken back by this because it's saying the Maximoff anomaly, agent impact on residents of Westview unknown, and Vision is like, what? So he touches the computer, boom, it like shuts it down. Norm, right? That's the guy he's talking to. Norm is like, it was a joke. Can't you see? Like, you don't have to don't take that serious. That hex, it's almost like that was a glitch, right? And whoever's running things covers down for that, right? By having Norm say, that's a glitch. It's funny. You're the funny guy in the office. You know, it's just a joke. Vision touches his mind. Boom, touches the temple. Now, this touching of the temple is, I don't know if you've been noticing it. Vision touches his temple. It frees Norm of this anomaly for a moment. And Norm don't know what it is. Norm is like, what time? What day is it? What day? Where's my phone? I gotta call my sister. My dad is sick. We're taking care of him. Wait, quick! Like he's bugging out. Vision's like, hey, Norm, calm down. What is it you're trying to tell me? And he's like, she is in my head and it hurts. Now I gotta go back, right? Gotta go back to Monica. When Monica came out, they said, what's the first thing you remember? Pain. That's the first thing. So this is not sitting well with Vision. You know, Vision did not see what Monica said. You as the audience member have. And now you're rehearing it again. It ain't just for those who go in. It's everybody in there, period, now. That lets you know it's for everyone, right? And he said, I can't even have my own thoughts. And then Vision touches him again. And he goes back. Do you have to put a stamp on an email? Like, he's just right back into being Norm, right? And he asked him to make her stop. Right? And he says, make her stop. She's in my head. I don't know if the she is Wanda. Now, he doesn't say Wanda because he doesn't know Wanda. Right? That's a fair assumption. And the reason I say, well, it could be someone. It could. But Monica said, all I hear is Wanda earlier. Norm saying, right? Norm, she's in my head. Make her stop. Going back after the pain. Monica hears Wanda's voice. So I'm going to associate those two are those two. And right? They're doing tricks with the dog. They're about to get to a big scene. But I want you to notice when the little boy Tommy is doing tricks with the dog. Bark, speak. Bark, speak. When he does this touching of the head, the dog does what he says. Vision touched this, boom, boom. He even did that to the computer where the computer temple, technically speaking, would be, right? So just things to note, right? But all of a sudden, Sparky's at the door and this drone goes in, right? This drone situation is a little shaky because Monica's controlling the drone. and they use the 80s technology to get in because, Director Haywood's like, can you clear up? I know it's 80s technology, but can you get it clear? Whatever, right? They get up on Wanda because Wanda comes outside. They meet up with Wanda. Cool. Monica is talking to Wanda, but here's the catch: flip view. Okay. At first, we see Monica and we see Wanda in the monitors. We see Monica talking. Wanda, this is Captain Monica Rambeau, Agent of S.W.O.R.D., blah, 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 right? Then they flip, right? And we see Wanda staring at the drone, but the drone there's nothing. There's no noise coming out. There's no, hey, this is. So my question is, was Monica going out? And I have to question that because the way they frame that shot is as if that mic is off. It's only here to make you think that you're gonna have a casual conversation with her. That mic is off. So what happens? Dark Knight, take the shot. Oh man, take the shot, right? What? No, Agent. They all of a sudden TVs go out. There's a breach. The breach happens, and this is where it gets crazy. We don't know who's about to come. Well, you know who's about to come out, right? Wanda comes out with this drone. She throws its guns pointed, right? And when Wanda's out there, she's got a full scar. She looks like she's ready. Like it's about to be World War III, and she gives him essentially an ultimatum, right? Because he's like, hey, you're taking these people hostage and blah, blah, blah. And, Wanda, with her accent, why has the accent returned? Well, it's a good way to change the tempo of the character. Also, she started with an accent. When she started with the accent, she was using mind control for no good, and she was working with Ultron.
The missile was just a precaution. You can hardly blame us, Wanda.
Oh, I think I can. This will be your only warning. Stay out of my home.
She's got that thick, dark red jacket on, and it's bad. Monica starts talking to her, though, right? Because Monica jumps in the conversation between her and the director, and she's like, yeah, but you do control the people inside, right? Like, you are in control. You are in control of this. And Wanda was like, oh, you still here? I don't know what Wanda was going to do, right? Because Wanda, all of a sudden, and she's like, Monica lays out a great point right here. She says, you're a telepath. You can read people's mind, and yet you let an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in and have me, of all people, deliver your babies. You know I'm an ally. Let us help you. What can you do for help from me? Monica's like, what do you want? I have what I want, and you are never going to take it from me again. And she's looking right at Director Haywood. Okay, is this talking in reference to the Vision body? I don't know. Monica just dropped the fact that she's a telepath. All right, so what is she seeing in his mind, or is she not reading his mind? But that red Wanda hex is still going, and she lets it go, and all those guns that were trained on Wanda switch their target. Boom, and they're on Director Haywood, and he's panicking. Now, who do we know who has done this before in movies? Coincidentally, Magneto. So I only bring that up because I thought that was a cool reference, but in comics, that's her father. So it's kind of like Marvel likes to play with these references. So now we get to our commercial, and it's a paper towel commercial, right? Nothing new here. Yeah. We get Lagos, right? So this Lagos commercial, it's back to the same original two adults. And again, I just think they're Wanda's parents, and it's kind of just going through the areas of her life I think that we've seen so far, and it's just like, or have heard. And in this case, it's what happened in Lago, because it even ends with the commercial saying, for when you make a mess that you didn't mean to, right? And that's essentially what happened in Lagos when she literally made a mess with the exploding Crossbones character, but it ended up resulting in death and injuries to civilians that she totally didn't mean to. You saw she was immediately startled. She was like she didn't want that to happen, right? So That ends the commercial, but it's just a flashback. Then now we're getting ready to end the episode, right? And they're looking for their dog. They done lost Sparky. They just got Sparky. They done lost Sparky. And they're looking for it. They pass a mailman. The mailman says something peculiar. Your mom won't let him get far, ma'am. Like, hey, man, I get it. You're controlling everything, right? She's got it. She's in charge. But they run into Agnes, right? Agnes they're like, Sparky, because the bushes are rumbling. And out pops Agnes with the dog, seemingly. Right? I'm always say seemingly because we didn't see if the dog was in the blanket. But it appears that the dog is in a blanket. And she's like, oh, he got to my azalea bushes. I don't know how many he ate. And I wanted to wrap him up and bring him to. So the kids, they start crying. And guess what? They look at each other. But Wanda stops them, right? They're about to age up. Now, why would I even talk about anything that didn't happen, right? Because Agnes is present. And if we go back to the first two episodes, there's something so much more sinister, I feel like. The first two episodes, for the children, for the children, for the children. And now there's two children running around here that are Wanda's. And every time Agnes is present, they seem to just boop, 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 right? And this time Wanda stops them, and she's kind of like giving them the spiel that a lot of parents do about how you should do things that I have done without saying that she's done it. Because she's telling them, don't age up. You got to go through this. It's a process you got to grow through. Billy says something that's pretty crazy. He says, but Mom, you can fix the dead. Fix it, right? Where did he find that? Where did he get that information from? Because Agnes even says herself, you can do that? And Wanda's like, no, that's not what's gonna like. She's trying to defend it without denying it in the same token, right? And then they're talking about bring him back, Mom. And then guess who walks up? Vision, right? So they don't say it like, whatever. But how did that child know or think that Wanda could bring back the dead? Like, what indication gave them that? The only thing there's not even a thing you can really logically think, right? I'm just going to go back to Agnes is always pregnant. We're dealing with telepathic people. And whatever Agnes sprayed on them in the beginning of the episode. And that's just my hunch, right? And I'm not saying to give them foresight, but I am going to say that they have been blessed with a certain amount of knowledge. And maybe Agnes is putting knowledge to them in their head. I don't know. But for him to just, you can fix the dead, Mom. Whoa, So they get back home, and it's an early night, and Vision's like, man, you get your dog the same day, and you got to bury him. And Wanda tries to blow it off, and Vision informs her at that moment, hey, I had a conversation with Norm. Free from your control, Wanda, he's hurting. And Wanda is like, oh, stop it. And she tries to tell, Vision was like, you can't control me the way you control him. Wanda puts it to the test. Wanda was like, and then keep this in mind. When this happens, oh, I can't. Michael Myers used to do that. And when anybody who turns their head like that in life, like your mother, when you talk back, like, oh, really? Like, it's about to go down, right? So that's just a word to the wise. And when she does that, the credits start rolling. She's about to fix all this. I'm going to bed. Right? And she's walking away from Vision. And Vision's like, no, Wanda, like, that man has a family. And Wanda kind of just walks out like, no, this is done. I'm out. And Vision storms through. He even transforms back into his Vision mode. And he's like, no, that man has a family. And Wanda's kind of having a little bit of breakdown. Now, remember, I did tell you in the beginning of the episode, Wanda's like exhausted. We watched the episode. Vision came down looking very like fresh. And Wanda came down looking very like, kids won't even stop crying. So what we see though is Vision get irate. And Vision is like, she's like, what do you think I do this and I control that? And Vision's like, stop lying. And he takes flight because he is just boiling over. And Wanda matches the intensity. Wanda jumps up too, and Vision is like, what are you not telling me? And he explains to Wanda, because Wanda was like, you've never talked to me like this before. Vision drops a bit of a bombshell where he's like, before, like, what? Like, I don't remember anything before Westview. I don't know what my life, I'm scared. Vision is a person that, remember, he's part Jarvis, part Tony, part Ultron too, Mind Stone, Bruce Banner. He has all these different parts to him, but what I'm getting at is Vision is a computer, right? He has access to information. So his access to information is also cut. And I'm only assuming that because based off what he said, that he can't remember anything. That Avengers fight, that people coming back from the blip, all that will be major news that he will be able to clearly access, very similarly to how Ultron did. Because if you remember how Jarvis ran for Tony, he was like he could just pull information because he's a supercomputer. And then the show, even earlier with Norm, alludes to how Vision, you could read this computer so easy, but he can't access all the information. And so I just want that, even though that wasn't said, that is kind of what's happening, okay? So they kind of come down, and Wanda is just trying to explain. She comes down first. She's the cooler head here. She comes down, and he's just trying to, look, man, I can't get everybody to their dentist appointments and make lunches and got everybody doing all this stuff. And Vision's like, what? And then the doorbell rings. Okay. Before I even go into the doorbell ring, I definitely want to make sure we have to ask this. Vision does say, what is outside of Westview? And Wanda says, you don't want to know, I promise you. That's a very haunting thing to hear, because Vision just told you he was scared. All right, and Vision hasn't been scared of anything. So the fact that that's said, I think is going to encourage Vision to go outside of Westview. I think even in promo that is done. But what I also do feel is that Vision is trying to figure stuff out. So what we see here is that I think with Vision, he wants to figure something out. He can't. He doesn't have the access to information. I don't even think he can remember that he can access information. So, but he is good at computers, and you can read those computers, right? So Wanda was thinking that she could rewind time and all this stuff, and the doorbell rings. So who is it? Who are we thinking now, right? And that's exactly what Vision's thinking. Agnes maybe, but Agnes normally comes in. Like, normally it's not a ring in the doorbell. So he's looking at Wanda. He's like, and she says, you think this is me? And he's like, yeah, based on the numbers. Because this happens too often, right? And she opens the door.
Wanda, who is this?
It's him in the flesh. It's Jeremy Evans' character, the one from all the X-Men movies. Well, not all, but the one from the X-Men movies. And this brings up a whole new set of stipulations and things like this. Now, when this happens, big moment that it just gets brushed away in the excitement, right? There's a breach. Go back and rewatch it. Doorbell rings. She answers the door. Who is this? Sword headquarters. Now, there's only 2 times the breach has happened. Monica getting shot out of the hex. Wanda coming out of the hex. That's the only times we've seen the breach. So when this breach happens, Darcy's sitting down at the table and she's looking. She even says she recast Pietro. So here's my thoughts, right? Let's get this straight and let's get this clear. I do not think that this is the incoming of mutants per se. I do think this is the door opening for the multiverse. I also don't think this is Quicksilver as we knew him from the X-Men movies. Now, what do I mean by all that? I say that to say this. He recognized Wanda. In the X-Men movies, Peter Maximoff, right? Now, don't correct me because I know you're like, it's Pietro. In the X-Men movies, it's Peter Maximoff. Peter, not Pietro. based on the Pietro character from the comics, though. And I think they did that because the contracts with Fox and Marvel, they were referring to Pietro as Pietro on the MCU side, and Marvel Fox side was using mutants, so they called him, quick, a Peter, right? They're playing the same character. But the Maximoff name is present in the X-Men movies. So what is this? I think whatever is overall in charge of this hex, or over Wanda, or it's Wanda thinking so hard because she told her twins earlier, I have a brother, he's far away. Did she will this person out of another multiverse into this one? I only ask that because did she will her? I get the comic reference. Please don't say anything about the comics right now. Other than this. In the episode where she gives birth to the children, the names were never agreed on. When Vision when Vision holds the child, right, he says Tommy. He always wanted the name Billy. When she does that, when Vision does that, Wanda takes notice, and all of a sudden, and she pushes out another child. Now, the doctor who was there earlier, he didn't know of twins. Now, granted, it was early in the pregnancy was accelerated, but my thing is, did Wanda will that child based on Vision wanting to make a sacrifice? Vision wanted a Billy, but he just said, I'll accept your name, Tommy. So she gave him a Billy as well. Was that the gist behind that? Is she powerful enough to just create life and then at the same time take from another, because she wanted a Pietro, she needed a brother. They literally pulled a Maximoff from another universe, right? That's literally what just happened. So I think regardless, it'll show the multiverse. I think that is their intent. I think that is Marvel's bread and butter of where they want to stick the story and how they want to drive it. Now, is that the introduction of mutants? I do not feel that will be the introduction of mutants. I do think that, all in all, that... So with those things, right, I think that Marvel is driving a point to say, yes, he was pulled from another multiverse, but he's not bringing all those mutants with him, right? It may. Wanda may say, I need someone who can, and next thing you know, someone else gets sucked out, right? But I do think this, and this is my 2 cents, and I want you to go back and look at the episode. I don't think that's Peter Maximoff or Pietro. I mean, it is Shell, but I think someone is pulling the strings on him, just like everybody else in the town has a real name, but then in this WandaVision show, they're being called something else, right? I think someone is pulling the strings on him, and I want you to notice the mirror. The thing about the mirror, if you look in it, it's a split second, so you have to pause it. When he comes in and they widen the view, you can see a mirror. You have to pause it. The distance between Wanda and Pietro is clear. It's a door there. It's clear. Just like from this point right here, where this sword is to where this arm is, I mean, pretend my head ain't there, right? Or right here, it's clear. There's nothing there. Even if I change the angle and you look at it, right? I mean, if a mirror was there, you would see it's clear. There's nothing here. But in the mirror, there is something grabbing towards or maybe coming out of Pietro. Also, notice the tint and contrast on Wanda in that mirror. You can clearly see it matches her. You can clearly see Pietro's pigment, but by his hand, it's not as clear as Wanda's. Why is that? That's what leads me to believe this is a character controlled by someone else, or it completely is someone else disguised as Pietro, someone who's near and dear to Wanda's heart, and now they get to, I don't know, maybe try to manipulate Wanda as this person that's close to Wanda, but yet not close, because Wanda doesn't really recognize him, but she's like, it looks like, and she kind of like, Pietro, right? So I also like how Marvel did this, right? Because this episode was stationed in the 80s, right? It was fashioned in the 80s. You have the Family Ties reference and the Full House reference, which is an ironic reference because her sisters played in Full House as a child, right, played by twins, and Wanda is a twin now playing in a Full House kind of episode based in the 80s. So it's kind of weird, but it's really cool. But Marvel tells a really dope story right here. In the 80s, they tell you in this same episode that they were born in 89, which means they'd missed the 80s. Wanda has flashed back to the 80s, but Pietro has already died. In the multiverse, Fox Marvel, X-Men First Class went in decades. Peter Maximoff appears in the 80s and the 90s as well, but the point is in that form. So did Marvel like double tap on that idea, like we need an 80s Pietro? There's an 80s Maximoff from here, and now that we have full rights to our mutants, we can just and dump, and that'll start our multiverse. And then we'll use mutants somewhere else. He may bring it up. Now, here's what you want to look for, right? Because I'm not going to put Pietro on the watch list. He's on there. So he's on there. He's got to go. Man. I don't trust this guy. This guy shows up in a Jesse Tanner, Uncle Jesse leather jacket. You ain't that cool, bro. So watch him, and let's see where this goes with Wanda and his tie into Wanda, and where does that put Vision? Every time Vision sees Agnes and they're alone, Agnes drops a little bit of information. Is Geraldine in there with Wanda? So is this going to be the same with Pietro? Because I'm pretty sure they're going to have, he said, who's the popsicle? Is that because Vision's green and burgundy? Or because Vision's dead? Hence him being cold, right? Like a dead body. We're going to find out. So tune in Friday. Rewatch some of the previous reviews. And definitely take some sort of notes, especially on these watch lists. These characters are going to come up big, and they're going to be big points in the moving forward of this and in other series, Captain Marvel 2 with Monica Rambeau and things of that nature. So just keep this in mind where they're about to go, man, and just enjoy the ride. I definitely think that Vision's going to try to escape. That's my prediction. I mean, it's essential that it wouldn't be a good story if he didn't, right? But where's Dottie? I haven't seen Dottie in about 2 episodes, so it's interesting to see where she's at and what role she's going to play going forward. Are we going to see Ralph and Agnes, right? Because I just don't trust her. So, and, on the flip side, we still got Director Haywood being a jerk, right? Or a terrorist, right? How they frame that together. So, basically, that's about it for this review. Tune in. We're going to try to get these out a little bit faster. Stay tuned. I still got some DC content to put out, and I think it's going to be pretty good. We're going to talk about the Snyder Cut that's coming here in March, and what are our expectations for, especially with the DCEU. Okay, so as always, I hope you guys like the content, and I hope you guys continue to rock with me with the content. But thank you for tuning in.
Click like, share, and subscribe.
Couldn't have said it better myself.